Hey guys, I'm Dan.
I'm Sarah.
And today we're going to take a look at our brand new Alucab family camper.
So you guys have followed us for a few months since February. We've had a busy summer. We finished the build, and then right off the back of that, we bought a house and then renovated it. So it's been a very busy summer, but we're finally ready to show you the final product.
Let's go take a look. So our truck is a 2017 Ram 1500 Rebel. I have had it since 2020. It's currently got about 155,000 miles on it. I bought it when it had 32,000 miles on it. So this truck has seen plenty of love. One of the things that I told myself when I bought the truck was I wanted to keep the truck itself as simple and as stock as I possibly could in order to get done what I wanted to get done. So that was part of the reason why I went with the Rebel package, because it's their off-road package. And that way I was able to minimize the aftermarket modifications that I had to do, and kept things as simple as possible. So one of the first things that I did to this truck was I changed out the suspension. It came with the factory air suspension from Ram, and while that worked, it was great. But as soon as it stopped working, it was not great anymore. So I went ahead and I went with a company from Canada called Air Delete, and we basically swapped the factory air suspension over to the Bilstein equivalent of an OE spring suspension. So we upgraded the control arms when we did that as well. We upgraded them to rebuildable ball joints on the top. But other than that, it's not really lifted at all. It sits pretty much at factory height. We're running 35s right now. We're running Nitto Ridge grapplers on a 35, 12.5, 17. Yeah, that's what it is, 17. And those have been probably the best tire that I've run so far. I don't have a ton of experience with off-road tires, and this was my first all-terrain, so very happy with this tire setup so far. Now, also on the front of the truck, you'll notice that I have the factory Ram bumper. This is another thing that I wanted to do intentionally. I wanted to keep the front of the truck looking as factory as I could. If we come in a little closer here, you'll see that I have these Schrader valves in the bumper, and these are so that I can inflate and deflate my tires all four at the same time if I want to. It's a nice little system that I haven't really used a ton, but it's worked out really, really great. I've got plumbing for the air underneath the truck. I have one on all four corners, and it really does speed up the air up and air down process. On our front bumper here, this is actually the most recent addition to the truck. These are our Light Force striker lights. These have removable filters on the front, so I can swap these out for either a black filter, or I can swap them out for a spot filter, or even a different color if I wanted to. I think they make a amber as well as a blue to cut down on fog and to cut down on dust. Underneath of the bumper here, I have a 13,000 pound winch. Also am using a Vice Designs hidden winch mount. That's what's holding the winch behind the factory bumper. That's the whole reason I was able to keep the factory bumper, but also put a winch underneath of it. This is something that is definitely necessary, especially if you're going to be traveling by yourself. There have been situations when I didn't have a winch where I very much wish that I did. So I'm very glad that we have one on this truck now. And on the front of the winch is, of course, a green flat link from Factory 55. And then some additional lighting we have on the outside is something that is apparently pretty polarizing in the Overland world, is ditch lights. I have some basic Light Force cubes on here. These are probably going to get switched out for a bigger and brighter light here in the relatively near future, but I do have some ditch lights here on some SDHQ ditch light brackets. These, if you're going to be camping at night, having ditch brackets, or ditch lights rather, pointed out to the side is fantastic so that you can look down a road before you actually drive down it. That's the whole reason I installed these, was because I have a tendency to get to camp pretty late, and I wanted to be able to see what was ahead of me before I ended up making a turn down a road that I didn't want to go down. So if we move back on the truck a little bit more, we have our fantastic Alucab 270 awning. We'll get you underneath of it so the sun doesn't glare anymore. But this is the Alucab 270 awning, and it has the same reflective material on the top that the camper does as well, so it reflects heat. And it also has a built-in leg as well as a built-in prop as well. All I need to do to set this thing up is take it from the front all the way around the back. I keep the bracket attached back here, and I also keep the strap attached to the back of the truck, so that literally all I have to do is pull the awning bracket around, put this in here, this little spider buddy there, but I put that there, pull it tight, and then my awning's ready to go. Then also on the back of the camper, we have our MaxTrax mount. I didn't want to put a tire on the back door. I've seen a lot of people do that with their Alucabs. I went ahead and I just installed the MaxTrax on the back, and I can also attach my trash can to any place on here. Like I can either clip it in here on these clips, or I can put a carabiner through up here. The MaxTrax have gotten used a lot more than I honestly thought they would. We've used them to build bridges on MSO trips. We've used them for leveling blocks. We've used them for just about everything that they could be used for. So very, very happy with those. And I'm also really happy with the way that this GP Factor mount turned out. If you remember from before, where I mentioned the air lines, these are the air lines for the rear tires back here. There's one on either side of the bumper, right next to my backup sensors. And then lastly, underneath of here, I don't know how well we'll be able to see it right now because it's daylight, I do have some rock lights installed underneath of the bumper here so that at night we can light up the ground a little bit. I have them set to a red color so that I can have really nice, not intrusive light on the ground for when we're trying to walk around the camper. So I have one installed right here. I have another rock light installed back here, and then a third one underneath of this corner here. So on the interior of the truck, we tried to keep things as basic as we could. Again, I mentioned that this is the Rebel trim package, so I was able to actually get a Rebel interior without it having that ridiculous Rebel red. It wasn't that bad in person, but I would have gotten really sick of looking at the red interior for the entirety of my time owning the truck. So I'm really thankful that I got an all black interior, but it also does have, you know, a nice big touch screen. It's not the nice Tesla screen that the new ones have, but honestly, I prefer to have actual buttons for my climate control instead of touchscreen climate controls. But the truck also did come with the factory inverter, which is very, very nice. This usually gets used for charging phones. It charges them really, really quickly, but I do have an inverter on the inside of the truck, which is super nice. In terms of devices in here, I have an aux beam switch panel that controls a variety of different things. So I have the air compressor, which is in the back of the truck, and that is then plumbed into the air lines underneath of the truck. These are for the bumper lights. These don't really do anything right now. This turns on the Midland radio, which is on the side here. I'll show you that in a second. And then I have each of the ditch lights wired in separately because I'm not usually looking out of both sides of my vehicle at the same time. So I wired those in individually so I could pop the driver's side on if I needed to individually. And then, like I mentioned, the radio that we have is the Midland MXT the Midland MXT 575. This is their most powerful radio that they have. I have gotten coverage with this within 3 miles of people, which is pretty incredible, honestly. And having it mounted in this location keeps it nice and out of the way, but also keeps it from getting blocked, so that we can still hear the speaker when we need to. Now, for navigation, most of the time we are using the Garmin Tread Overland. It has been mind-blowingly awesome. I didn't think that a dedicated GPS unit was going to be something that was so very fun to use, but I have the ability to do a ton of stuff with this tablet here. It is a full Android tablet, so if I want to install apps on it, I can. It's got a fantastic map with all kinds of details that I can customize to if I want. Then it also has a built-in inReach if I need that. Then I've also got full-blown navigation. I've got control over my media players, and I can also record tracks as well for, when we're on MSO trips or when I'm out by myself. One of the other features that this has is group ride, so that when we do our guided trips, we can keep track of where everybody is. Everybody that has that on their phone or on one of their Garmin units, we can keep track of everybody on the trip. Now, lastly, I have a 67 Designs phone mount. I've been using 67 Designs for years. I've had them since, I had my Jeep back in the day, and their suction cup is one of the best suction cups on the market, in my opinion, and their universal phone mount is just super easy to get your phone in and out of. So I keep that right there. Try to keep it off to the side as much as I can so it doesn't stay in my way while I'm driving. Yeah, so that's about it for devices and mounts. We do have some storage stuff in the back. We have some Blue Ridge Overland gear storage stuff that we'll show you real quick in the back seat, but that stays mostly open so that both boys and Archie can stay back there and have enough space for themselves. All right, so in the back of the truck here, we have the seats set up separately. So on the back of this seat, we have one of the Blue Ridge Overland Gear seat back panels. As you can see right now, there's not really anything on it. And this is intentional because we tried to keep this truck as modular as we could because the needs change for every trip. So sometimes we'll have snacks back here. Sometimes we'll have, tissues back here. We'll have a first aid kit here. Sometimes we'll even, put one of the radios on there so the kids can have access to the radio if they want. But this also gets used as a seat front panel. When I'm on my guided trips with MSO, I'll put it on the front of the passenger seat and I can stick all my camera gear to the front of it while I'm driving around. So I have a nice, quick, easy place to put my camera gear while I'm driving around guiding. Now on the other seat, so on this passenger seat over here, this is probably our most used item in the entire truck, and this is the Blue Ridge Overland Gear headrest trash bag. This is fantastic, especially if you've got kids. It keeps the trash hidden and out of the way. It's a nice material that doesn't get all gross with trash in it. We honestly don't even put a bag in it, believe it or not. And it holds a lot of stuff. So this gets used. This can also get flipped around to the front of the seat for when it's just me in the truck so that I don't have to reach behind. But we are very, very happy with our Blue Ridge Overland gear, and we fully intend on buying more as we figure out where and how we're going to store things. So before we hop in the camper, I want to just show you the back door setup. It's pretty simple right now. We do intend to put a bunch more stuff on this back door. Like we're going to put some paper towels on here. We're going to expand the first aid kit. We're going to put a bunch of storage bags back here. But we do have the GP Factor Molly panel on the top, and then the GP Factor drop-down table for the bottom. So this actually gets used a lot more than I personally thought it would, mostly because this cutting board slides all the way out, and then I have this gigantic space out the back of the truck. Plus this cutting board comes all the way out if I needed to, and then I can carry it around. All right, so let's hop in the camper and Sarah will show you upstairs.
So we're upstairs in the tent portion of the camper now. So I'm going to show you around and just talk through how we use it a little bit. One of the first things I want to point out though is one of the things I mentioned in the first video that we had about being my favorite part of the camper, and that is the skylight. So as you can see, it really spans pretty much the whole width of this tent area, and you can lay in bed and just watch the sky, the stars, when it rains, when it snows. It's amazing. So I love this part of it. Another really functional part of this camper are all of these pouches up here along this wall. So there's 6 pouches here and another 6 pouches over there. This is fantastic for sleeping up here. We store things like, we'll put our cell phones in here at night. If we have little pouches of cords we need accessible, we'll put those in there as well. We always have tissues up here because inevitably someone always has a runny nose. We'll have one that we collect trash in just to keep that contained. There's just so many functions for these. I feel like you always need somewhere to put something while we're up here. So these get used a lot. So obviously I want to talk about the footprint of the tent portion. When all the panels are down, it is larger than a king size bed. And I want to point that out just because it truly is a family camper and we really do fit all up here. When the whole family is camping, we will lay one next to another going this way in the camper, head or feet on either one of these ends here. And we're able to get the 2 kids, myself and Dan and Archie, all up here. We're each able to sleep on our backs and move around in the middle of the night as we need to without being crunched or feeling like you're up against someone all night. So it really is a good amount of space. Archie usually sleeps at the foot of the youngest because he's the shortest, so he's got space there, and it just really works out for us. We will set it up. Sometimes everyone has individual sleeping bags. Sometimes we just lay out blankets. It really just depends on the weather and who's all sleeping up here. And then we have extra pillows that we can lay against here, which we have found to be just the most comfortable way to sleep up here. Also, there's a good amount of ventilation up here that I wanted to point out. So there's a window on each side with a screen that can be opened a little bit or all the way, depending on how much airflow you want through while you're up here. And then there's a window out front on this overhang that spans pretty much the whole width that lets in a lot of air. There's also the skylight that I mentioned, has a screen. You can remove the rainfly if you want to let even more air in. But even with the rainfly up, there is the space in between which lets ventilation in. If it were to get too cold, you can close it up completely. And then the top side of this panel for the skylight has the same reflective material as the rainfly. So it will help reflect that heat away. And just control the temperature even more up here. We find that with all of us sleeping up here, especially in colder weather, it stays plenty warm up here. And in the warmer temperatures with the windows open and all the screens and all the air blowing around, it stays cool as well. All right, and back in this corner, there's the electronics. So there's a unit here and there's a unit on the other side underneath the panel that's over there with the pouches as well. So you can flip the unit on and off with this switch, and then there's charging ports. We typically will charge our phones at night. We'll charge things like Archie's e-collar, anything that we need to, our watches, but it's just helpful to have that up here and things charging while we sleep. All right, so we're just gonna rearrange some stuff up here and then we'll meet you down in the kitchen. So now we're down in the kitchen area. The first thing I wanna show you is the actual kitchen prep and storage space, which is on this side of the camper. We have on top here a butcher block countertop, and we kept that just a solid surface up here to have the maximum amount of prep space. It also happens to be one of the step areas where we use to get up to the tent area. On this side, we decided to do a series of drawers to maximize the storage in this area. So we have them on soft close slides, which is really nice, especially when you have kiddos. And then we ended up doing for the handles, we did these leather pools. I didn't want anything solid sticking out that you could be bumping your thigh into or would just kind of get in the way and knock your knee against. So I wanted something soft but also functional that we could actually open the drawers with. So this is what we went with for the pools. We have just kind of categorized storage down here. This is our coffee drawer up here. Then we've got kitchen supplies here. We've got bathroom supplies here, all the way down to this last one, which is our pantry. So we've got dry goods down here. And then we can't forget about this drawer. This is Archie's drawer. So we've got all of his food, his toys, that we keep in there for him. And then this area right here, we ended up leaving open. We thought about this quite a bit and how we wanted to design this specific cubby. We were gonna have doors opening up or a curtain. Ultimately, we decided to just leave it open for ease of getting things in and out. We have our Dometic water jugs here that fit. There's one in the front and one behind that we have strapped down, obviously, so it's not moving around while we're driving. And then we have the Dometic faucet as well. And this is just really convenient to be able to refill water bottles or get water when we're trying to cook. It's easy for the kids to use as well. Next to it, we have open storage. We have husky bins in here that fit perfectly next to the Dometic, but we also have used this for open storage for more snacks. We've put a bin in here before with just a bunch of food that the kids can easily grab. And then up here, we actually have a marine oven. So Dan has made brownies in this so far. And on this camping trip, we're gonna make chocolate chip cookies. So this is just something fun we put in. It's another way for us to prepare food. And we just, it's fun to be at a campsite and be able to bake something. It's not a usual thing, but it works for us and we have fun with it. And then on this side, what I'm sitting on is it's a bench that we can use to sit and just hang out in the camper, which is nice to have, but it also provides a ton of storage. So this is split into two lift top lids here. This storage specifically solves one of our greatest problems when we're camping, especially with kids, is where do we put all the shoes? And I know I'm probably not alone in saying that, but shoes and jackets are always just floating around. So this is specifically our shoe storage bin. So we keep all the sneakers, hiking shoes, Crocs, anything you could want in there at all times, and it keeps it off the floor and out of the way. This one right here, right now has a lot of recovery gear in it, but we will also use this sometimes if we were doing a bigger camping trip. We'll use that as a secondary pantry to put snacks in for the kiddos or for us. For the bench portion and then the ends of the kitchen area, we decided to paint them. We used an exterior paint so it would be as durable as possible in not only the elements, just but the wear and tear of being out in a camping environment. We chose, it's bare black evergreen is the color. It changes in sunlight. Sometimes it's more blue, sometimes it's more green, but we really liked it. It just met the aesthetic we were trying to get. And then coordinating, of course, as well with the orange alu-cab details. Another design aspect that we thought through that is actually quite intentional is this angular entry to not only the storage side over here, but then also the kitchen side. We wanted to bring both of these portions out into the aisle as much as possible to maximize our working space as well as our storage. However, we wanted to keep the aisle as open as possible too. So we came in at an angle so that you weren't bumping your knee right on a corner as soon as you were getting to the camper, and it just didn't feel as closed in. This kind of opens it a little bit and then allows us to come into the aisle a little bit more but not feel as cramped. On this side with the storage bench, it also provided a flat surface that we then utilized. We have the Vitron readout so that we can see the voltage of our batteries here. And then we also put electronics down here, outlets, and Dan put these as low as possible. One, so we could have power at the back of the truck, but then also if this back door is closed because of this angle, we can still plug things into these outlets. It doesn't block them in any way. So again, something small, but we put a lot of thought into it design-wise. All right, so another design aspect is the flooring that we put in. So we decided to go with the LVP plank floor. We wanted a light color just to create that open space, to not have it dark, but just nice and bright in here. We found an LVP that was rated down to sub-zero temperatures. We figured that was gonna be the best way to go for when we're winter camping. We're not typically in sub-zero temperatures, but if we've got a floor that can go that low, we figured that was gonna be the most durable. It's also just a nice solid surface. It's easy to clean. We have a brush that we can just brush out the dirt really easily. Yeah, it should just be durable for all of what we will throw at it.
So then towards the back of the camper, we have all of our like technical gear. So something that Sarah and I are testing out on this trip is putting our Patagonia black hole bags on the molly panel back here. It's working out pretty good. It's a good way to keep our clothing up and out of the way, because otherwise it tends to kind of float around on the L-shaped bench. Now, this L-shaped bench is designed to it be able to hold somebody. Like, I have a backpacking air mattress in the back of the truck, so if somebody wanted to sleep down here, they could. It's long enough. It's actually the same length this way as it is this way. So there's plenty of sleeping space down here. Now, in the back part of that L-shaped bench is where I put all of the 12-volt electrical stuff. So I'm going to open up this cubby here, pull this out, and then we can kind of show you what's going on in the electrical system. It's a pretty straightforward electrical system. I tried to keep everything as simple as I possibly could on this truck. I wanted to not really have to run into any issues as much as I could, so I tried to keep everything as low-key as I possibly could. So in this cubby, I have my fuse block for everything that is on my 12-volt system. I also have my master cutoff switch. The battery actually lives behind the refrigerator back here. It's one of Renogy's new slimline batteries, and it just lives directly behind the refrigerator over here, as well as my Victron smart shunt system also is behind here, as well as the 2,000-watt inverter that is powered by the 3 batteries that are over here for now. It's typically only one. It's usually only one slimline, but then I have 2 additional batteries that I can put next to the refrigerator over here if I need some additional capacity. Now, to charge everything, I have 3 different methods of charging. I have my DC to DC charger that charges directly off of the truck's battery and the alternator. So while the truck is running, I can charge the 12-volt system back here. Then back in our shoe bin back here, I have a solar charge controller. I have 200 watts of solar on the roof of the camper. And then lastly, I have the ability to plug into shore power. I have a NOCO charger that I can plug directly into shore power. So I have a way to charge in pretty much any scenario. Now, in terms of our food storage and refrigeration, this is the Dometic 75 dual zone. This is actually my second CFX2 dual zone, but I've been running those fridges for the better part of a decade now, and they're fantastic fridges. I have had really good success with them, and there's plenty of storage in here. We've got drinks and stuff on this side, and then we keep food and then like the kids' drinks and stuff on the other side. Like I mentioned before, we do have this cubby area back here, this little dark hole that's back here, and that solves one of the other problems that Sarah was mentioning earlier. Jackets. Jackets are one of those things that kind of just float around and don't really ever have a place to go. So we made this spot in the camper dedicated for hanging storage. So whether that's jackets, fly fishing waders, really whatever we needed, can go back here in this corner. And you can kind of see on the other side of the fridge, it also doubles as our laundry basket. So we don't have an official laundry basket just yet. That is coming. But that is where we store our dirty laundry. So shoes, jackets, and dirty laundry. Those were some of the biggest things that we had to figure out. And we were able to actually get those figured out in this camper. So while it does look like this camper is pretty built out, and it is, honestly, we tried to keep things as modular as we could, because ultimately the needs for every camping trip are different. Like when I'm going out guiding with MSO, it's literally just me and Archie in the truck. And then sometimes it's me, Sarah, and Archie in the truck. And then other times it's the 5 of us all in here. So the needs are different depending on what trip we're going on. So we tried to keep things as modular as we could. So like Sarah mentioned, we use these Husky boxes down here, and I can actually fit 2 of them underneath of the toaster oven here. And then that way we can kind of swap stuff in and out. Like on this trip, we just have our utensils and then our Starlink that sits underneath of there. But we have bins for various various different needs for, you know, the boys' activities and that kind of stuff. So we can kind of swap stuff out as we need. But then even inside the drawers themselves, well, that was a lovely noise, wasn't it? Even inside the drawers themselves, you know, we have bags that are storing everything so that we can just pull those out and move those around camp if we need to. And, you know, even on the toiletry side of things, you know, we've got bags for, you know, that kind of stuff. So we tried to keep it as modular and as customizable down the road as we could. And like I said, I mentioned the batteries earlier. I don't typically run 300 amp hours of battery. It's not something that I usually need. But for things like going to X-Fest or things like going on long trips where we're sitting for a day or two and we want to use the toaster oven and that kind of stuff, we do need the additional capacity. But usually those batteries are not there. So I have it set up in a way that I can just kind of disconnect the batteries and pull them out, and then we can use that space for additional storage if we need to. So lastly, I kind of want to just talk about the overall design of the camper and why we chose to go with a setup like this. So this whole layout is inspired by troopy builds, so Land Cruiser troopies, where they have everything kind of self-contained with the camper on top. They have a kitchen on one side and then a bench on the other side. I've spent a decent amount of time traveling around and camping out of the back of the truck. I, you know, lived in the back of the truck for 8 months at one point, and I feel like I've gotten a pretty good sense of what designs and what layouts work really well for long-term travel and long-term camping and living out of the back of your truck. So like I've mentioned 1,000 times so far, we wanted this to be flexible. We wanted this build to be flexible. So, you know, if somebody didn't want to sleep up top, or if somebody needed to sleep down low because they didn't feel good or something like that, we have the ability to sleep people down low, but we also have the ability, most importantly, to hang out inside if the weather's crappy. Like, not every time you go out camping, the weather's going to be sunny and glorious and fantastic. It's unrealistic. So there are going to be times where we needed to all hang out inside and have the ability to sit here comfortably. As you can tell, this is a pretty decent height for me. I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'6". So having space where I can get up and move around and change and stand up, I wanted to have that ability inside the camper of a truck. I wasn't trying to climb ladders. I wasn't trying to do any of that anymore. So we went with the, I guess you could call this a U-shaped interior or an L-shaped interior, so that we could have the most flexibility with things. We have the ability to cook inside if the weather's bad. We have the ability to heat up water inside if the weather's bad. We have plenty of space for everybody to sit. On an MSO trip, I think we fit, 13 people in the back of Jason's truck. So there's plenty of space for everybody to hang out inside of here if we need to. But this design is the culmination of like 5 years of overlanding in a truck. It's fantastic to finally see it all in the physical realm and all completed and ready to go. But as always, there will be things that will change over time. So we will continue to add things, we'll continue to modify, we'll continue to upgrade, and we'll keep you guys posted as we do that. All right, so that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and we hope to see you guys on some future MSO trips.
It sounds like the cookies are done. All right, let's check out these cookies. Oh, those look delicious.
Wow.
And that is why we wanted a toaster in the camper.